Hi, everybody. I am so excited. It's rare that I hope you can hear me okay with these stupid headsets. It is really rare that I get super, super excited about a live that I'm doing. And this one has me totally psyched. I'm just waiting for Kristin Hodson. Kristin Hodson is a sex therapist out in the Utah area who just said she's not seeing me live. So let's hope that she sees this. Kristin, if you're there, just ask to join. She's a sex therapist out in Utah. She works with the LDS, the Church of Latter-day Saints, Mormons. I'm going to actually ask her about which term is the better term. And she is amazing. If you know me, you know that I'm pretty hard to impress. I'm a pretty tough critic. Aha! I see Kristin. I'm so excited to see you there. Hold on. Let me see if I can ask you to join here. Okay. Oh, there we go. There we go. And go live. Just like the biggest admirer. I've been stalking this poor woman. I feel like I've been stalking her. So I don't know how she's feeling about it, but I feel like there she is. Oh my gosh. Hi.
Hi,
How are you?
I am good.
You've
It's
been
the,
so sparkly lately. I know you said you weren't feeling well, but I feel like you just been, everything about you's been sparkling. Your background, sparkling.
it's the hair. I finally feel like I'm coming into this thing with my hair, and for me that makes all the difference in like my persona. It's like I don't know. It's
Well, you're sparkling, and your
Thank you.
earrings, you just seem super sparkly, which is great. Which is your personality in general, but
Yeah,
anyway. So I
yeah.
was just telling everybody that I think I've been stalking you, and
Um,
I for like a year about that I've been stalking you. So we got introduced by a friend of ours at NPR, Lee Hale. I don't know if you remember. He said to me,
yeah,
the most interesting women I know in religious communities are the sex therapists. And I
yeah.
was like, okay, tell me who. And he gave me your name, and I just fell in love. Like, I just feel like you're amazing, which
You
you
know what's?
know.
Let me stop you there because I actually knew about you way before because I had been following your work and you were in magazines, and so when Lee said, uh, "Bat Sheva wants to like," I was like,
Connect.
what in the world? So you,
So, uh, besties. So we just need to thank Lee for this connection. So I'm having trouble hearing you. Are you hearing me okay?
I can hear you okay.
Oh,
Yeah.
perfect. Now I got you. Okay, great. Okay. So I got you for like 30 minutes, and I'm going to use every single last second because you are so busy and you have little kids, and I don't know how you do everything you do. So, first of all, can you just tell everybody who you are and
Yeah.
what you do? That would be great to get started.
Yep. So I'm Kristin Hodson. I am a licensed clinical social worker. That's my default license. And then I became a certified sex therapist and educator in Salt Lake City, Utah. And so my niche kind of is working with people in the community, in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, AKA the Mormons.
Can you stop for a second and tell me like what's the appropriate thing? Because I feel like I used to say Mormon, now I say LDS, and
Yeah.
I always want to use the right terminology. So you tell me.
Yeah, either.
Oh, okay.
The Mormon Church came out, I think it was last year, and they're like, we would like to be called the Church of Jesus Christ, like members of, and it's so long that LDS is great. Mormon makes room more for the cultural side because you have a lot of people that are no longer practicing in the faith, but are Mormon by culture
Oh,
and how they,
that's so interesting. Okay.
yeah. So that's kind of, but I'm in the mecca of it here in Salt Lake.
Well, one of the things that I think Chris and I have found is how similar the
Yeah.
communities are because I am very, like a lot of my followers are from the Orthodox Jewish community.
Hmm.
Not all of them, but a lot of them. And I am just struck again and again and again by the similarities, which
Yeah.
takes me a little back. So I want to move into like talking to your kids about sex. And I want to start with, the fact that I've heard you say this, and I say this all the time, and I'd love you to talk about it a little bit more.
Yep.
That it's really important for parents to get involved, not school, you know, just sex educators, because it's a chance to not only share information but your values. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
So, can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so really, one of my missions is to empower parents to become the sex experts of their home. And one of the challenges and opportunities of that is that we have a lot of generations that never got any information around sexual health. So it can feel intimidating and foreign to be a sex educator when you're like, I don't even know how to talk about sex. I don't know the information about sex. And so my hope is, and my goal is to break that down so parents can be like, I actually, and to make it these baby steps feel within reach, and to reframe the idea of that we're just talking to our kids about affection and intercourse, but we're talking to our kids about sexual health. I'm known in my circles that when parents say, when should we start talking to our kids about sex? It's like in utero, because you as a parent can start practicing and saying the language. So that's my hope, is to reframe the idea of talking about sex to sexual health.
So, okay, I'm always trying to give the exact same message. I just want to make sure that you're
Yep.
seeing me okay, because you're breaking up a little bit, but I just want to make sure that you're seeing me okay.
Okay. I'm seeing you. Um,
Yeah, you're freezing on me. So I don't know if it's my side. Am I
can you
not freezing
hang
for
on?
you?
Yeah, hold on. I just got off of my Wi-Fi at my house because it's been wonky all day. So maybe this will be better.
I
Is
think it's a
this
little
any?
I think it's a little bit better. I'm wondering if I should get closer to my Wi-Fi. Are you seeing
Oh,
me?
I can see you okay. Yep.
Okay, fine. So then let's assume it's not my Wi-Fi. Should we just assume that? Or no?
Fine. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So, because one of the other things that with parents, I think, struggle with is not just like the ability to talk about it, because I think that's so huge. Like I tell people, practice in the shower, practice to your husband, practice to
Yeah.
whatever. But it's also, they struggle with the messages, right? Like on the one hand, they feel like there's a part of them that wants to say, "Oh, I don't want you having sex of any kind till you're 28 and married, with
Yeah.
3 children." And on the other hand, they know that they were sexually active at 15.
Totally.
So how do parents, like, how are they supposed to, like, deal with that kind of dichotomy that they struggle with?
The word I have for that is starting to reconcile internal moral conflict. That at the root of a lot of this is parents are having to resolve moral conflict, which can take, it's not as simple as just doing a worksheet or an exercise. It's something that you just have to keep working through until you're really trying to marry. Where I think people get stuck is um, either or, that when it comes to sexual health and sexuality, people get caught in, I either this set of values or I uphold sexual health. And you really, when you start to reconcile these moral conflicts, you realize you can have, well, at the core of sexual health is values. It's a value-based approach to sexual health, but it's moral conflict. That's usually where people are stuck of, I was sexually active, but I internalized, especially people in religious communities, over their lifetime, they internalized religious teachings and messages. Even if they're not practicing, that was developing along with their sexual identity. So that can still be really strong in them, like embedded, woven. Like you are nodding, and I'm like, you're on the same page here.
Right, people don't even realize how much this has. You've seen the hearts flying up. People don't even realize until they stop to, like, think about it and really talk about it, how deep this resides in them. How and sometimes they feel like they don't even agree with it, but it's still living in there.
Yep, absolutely. And having to examine beliefs that we're not conscious of. Like it really is my favorite quote of, until we make the unconscious conscious, it will direct our lives and we will call it fate. There are so many beliefs that we have to pause to examine, to say, does this still fit for my life? Like, this is how I was raised. This is how my family taught me. But I need to take a pause and look at it and go, does this belief still serve me? Is it serving what I want for my family, for our goals? And that can be hard work. That's
So I feel like that is probably at the core of the hard work that gets done. And
yeah.
then the other thing I think that gets really hard, and I'm as a parent of much older children and grandchildren, I feel like realizing that you can guide your children, but in the end they're going to make their own choices, and that I think is so hard for parents to be able. I mean, I know it's for me, not even so much with sex, but like, what I always joke around that I was a fabulous mother until my kids turned 18, and then I was a terrible mother because like it's so hard for me to watch them make mistakes. It's so hard for me to watch them make choices that I wouldn't necessarily make, and I think when it comes to sex, that's really, really powerful.
It is. And I was just having a conversation with my mother who said it is so hard to parent adult children and watch them live their lives and make choices, because I think they are watching us then raise their grandbabies, and they're like, but it is. I think that is.
Although you're a perfect mother, Kristen, so I
I
don't think you have to worry about it. Perfect.
just out, and I'm just hoping to share. No, even when it comes to sex, I still, even when it's my job, when it intersects in my personal life, at times I'm still like, because I still have my religious upbringing in me, and while I have done so much of my work to unwind that, it still pops up in situations that I don't expect. And that's normal for parents to, when you're talking about our kids making decisions different than we want. That's another hard part that I have a lot of parents will say, I don't want my children to masturbate. So can you help me with that? Or I want them to, like, can you help them be sex positive and not masturbate?
Can you help them be not gay? Probably.
That, like, there's all of these things of, can you help that? And that's where you have to do a lot more work, that you can impose your values, but everything, at times our kids they are sexual beings, like sexuality is, we're wired that way. So there's
Right.
something, our own stories, our own unresolved stuff really gets in the way of their development.
Right. Like, you can share your values, but you can't
Yeah.
make them have your values. That's like, right. And I do think it's really important for you to share your values. And probably the least judgmentally way you can do that, and the more open way you can do that, is the most likely to lead to them possibly sharing those values,
Yep.
but you can't make them have your values. So I'm I'm so curious about this, and it's sort of because I know this is a big issue in the Jewish Orthodox community. Girls dressing, the way girls dress, and like girls in particular, boys probably also, but like where I see the mothers and the fathers really getting into this power struggle. Well, I'm not going to say what I think. I'm so curious because I don't think I've ever heard you talk about this, and I'm actually fascinated by this. What do you think?
Well, so in our culture and community, it's called modesty culture. It's
Okay, that's the same, right?
And the dress standards are particularly targeted towards girls and women. And so, like, you can definitely have indicators like that can become one of the power struggles right there of, no, we don't wear tank tops. No, your shorts need to be down to your knees. Like, no, you need to do this or that, or
I'm just
what.
going to stop you. Anybody who's listening to this from the Orthodox Jewish community can just so relate to this. Like, it's like, yes, your skirt has to be longer. No, you
Yep.
cannot wear sleeveless. Yes.
Yep.
Anyway,
And it becomes a measurement of worth and obedience and what it can mean if you're not following that. And then you get into rape culture, and like, it is very much here. Like, we've had, I don't know in your community, but here you have girls that will go to a dance and they'll show up in the news because their dress wasn't long enough, and so they couldn't go to the dance, or they had to go home and change,
oh,
or
we don't let people go to dances, so that's.
okay. Okay. So
But no, I'm joking. But no, that's true. But so what? And I feel like this turns into a huge power struggle between the mothers and the daughters, or the fathers and the daughters, but the mothers and the daughters. And I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm trying to tell the mothers to relax. That
yeah,
that if the daughters don't dress exactly the way they think they should be dressed, it's not like they're going to be necessarily signing up as sex workers, in their next career choice. I mean, it feels so powerful to the mothers, and it feels like such a power struggle.
yeah, it's the same in our community, and it can be uh a place where you have to really decide where your battles are, because you can't pick every single battle and have the exact same amount of weight. So it can be very problematic, especially when girls and children are trying to figure out their identity and how they express themselves and how they want to show up. And I really like the account called Beauty Redefined that has done, it's two PhD sisters that have really done a fantastic job of reframing that narrative of dressing in a way that how you want to show up and be comfortable in your body, and it makes sense for the sport, and like being in your body instead of being a spectator of your body. That modesty culture and ours can cause girls to really objectify themselves and be more concerned about how they're being perceived and if they're sleeves, and they move out of their body instead of just being in their body.
You know, Peggy Orenstein in Girls on Sex talks a lot about the fact that we somehow raised our girls not to be like present and pleasure oriented and feel things, but rather to act sexy and be perceived as sexy. And that is such an interesting dichotomy. And you want to, as a parent, I think, be really careful kind of not to keep that split happening. I feel like it's so much more important. Like, let your daughter, so what if your daughter goes out wearing something that you don't feel is appropriate? Like, if she feels good about her body, like, I wish we were all, like if they have moments where they're feeling good about their body, that seems to me like the higher level of importance than that the sleeve is a little too short or the skirt is a little too short.
Well, and especially when you look at the research and you see that body image issues are one of the biggest disruptors for sexual health and pleasure in adult women, that is a massive disruptor to women experiencing desire, having desire, experiencing pleasure. And it starts young, and there's so many messages countering girls in particular that they should not feel comfortable in their body, that they should alter and do this. So to have messages that empower them are huge.
It's so funny. Somebody just texted here that our school in Utah doesn't allow girls to wear tank tops, and the shorts have to be down to their fingertips. So if it makes you feel better, in the Orthodox Jewish community, shorts are not allowed at all. Like, pants aren't even allowed, just skirts to your knee. So, and not all the community, but like in the schools primarily. So I think, these restrictions that just fall on the girls can be so complicated. So anyway. Any last advice about that before I turn to porn, which is what I think, like, I feel like people always need to talk about porn and their kids.
So I just think really quickly on that, just if women or mothers can if they can around their own body, it's probably the biggest gift they can give to their children and their daughters. And I'm losing you now.
You're losing me?
Are you? Yeah, I'm losing you at this point.
Okay, hold on a second. Can you see me now? Are we straightening out or no?
Yeah, I can hear you enough. You're a little foggy, but that's okay. I can hear you. The audio's good.
Okay, sorry about that. I mean, I feel like we're so blessed. Like, I'm just talking to you from Salt Lake City as if it's nothing. Yep. And then I get upset when like the internet goes down. But if you're hearing me okay, then otherwise I can try to move, but I'm always nervous to do that.
You're good.
Okay. So let's move on to porn, everybody's favorite subject. Yep. It freaks everybody out. It makes everybody nervous. I love the way you approach it. So can you start talking a little bit about that?
Sure. So again, I'm a little bit in the Mecca for that, because I'm just going to, Utah was the first state in the United States to declare pornography to be a public health crisis. And then other states followed suit. So we were kind of first of that. While simultaneously.
When was that?
I think that was 3 or 4 years ago. Simultaneously, sex education was up on the on the docket to get passed down. And when I talked with Senator Todd Weiler, who said, like, we kind of went head to head during that time, and he said, no, sex education has nothing to do with pornography. So I am in that. I'm also very, very aware, because many in my community and culture sex issues around pornography and visual imagery, all of that are painful for a lot of people because the way it's framed here in Utah is sex addiction. So
it's not just Utah, by the way. I feel like it's amazing how everybody feels like the first time you look at porn or the second time you look at porn, you're addicted.
Yeah.
Right. It's almost like it's heroin.
Yeah. Well, and and I think this is relevant since you and I are both coming from Orthodox communities. Not to go research heavy, but it does matter that in a few studies, the more someone identified with following the tenets of their religion identified as Orthodox, the more likely they were to identify as a sex addict. So when we look at the criteria for...
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. So when you look at that, there's just so much moral and internal conflict around sexual desire and wanting to fulfill religious values and beliefs. There's a lot of conflict. And so I guess I should ask you, do you want me to talk about it as it relates to kids or adults? Because I run the spectrum. I am careful on how I navigate this conversation on Instagram, because as you know, you can step into these conversations that you're like, it's hard to articulate or express complex sexual health concepts into tiny Instagram squares.
No, I think you're 100% right, and we've talked about that. So I will just say that I have sort of come out very strongly saying that porn is a little like alcohol. Well, which is funny because you guys actually don't drink alcohol, or a lot of Mormons don't drink alcohol, but Jews do. So it's like if you use it responsibly and in small doses, it's fine. And if if you feel like it's getting out of control or getting in the way of your life, then it needs to be looked at. That's for adults. I'm really interested in your talking about how does a parent deal with porn with their kids? I feel like that's what I'd like to talk about. Is that okay?
That's perfect.
Okay, good.
I think for parents, the comfort level, because parents weren't raised with languaging or modeling of how to talk about sexuality. We weren't given the vocabulary. We weren't given the terms. It can feel a bit clunky, and it can be really hard that if you're not actively against pornography, then you must be for it. It's that either or thing again. And I really like to have parents, it can be easier, I shouldn't say easy, but more comfortable to start off with teaching our kids about the scary stuff of sex, of what we don't want them to experience. We don't want them to experience sexual abuse. We don't want them to land and have a compulsive relationship with pornography. We want to prevent STIs and assault. Well, those are like all the scary things of sex. And when I say prevent assault, I'm talking about the responsibility of people that are assaulting to not assault. I want to be clear on that. But when it comes to pornography, I'd like to say to empower parents to have pornography be part of the conversation, not the conversation. Like I will have parents they have not had any conversations with their kids about sexual health, which might be about anatomy and boundaries and hygiene and healthy friendships. And they want to start with pornography. And that doesn't give any context of where this fits. And developmentally, you could start to build in definitions of pornography at young ages. Kids are capable, but if it's not integrated within a conversation of sexual health, it's kind of like driver's ed. The way I think about it is we as kids witnessed our parents driving cars, and it looked like a lot of fun and it was great, and we were really excited to drive a car. And then we go to driver's ed and they just tell you everything bad that can happen, to like the worst degree. Like you're going to get into car accidents and you're going to be on the side of the road bleeding and dying. And I think all of us just tossed that education out of the window because we're like, well, it can't be that bad because all these people are driving in cars. And so
I love this, Kristin. Okay, I never heard you say this. This is great. Yeah, go ahead.
So the goal would be to move it from a conversation of fear to media literacy and starting to deconstruct the the images that our kids will be exposed to. It's
Can you say what media literacy is so people can understand that?
Yeah, media literacy is starting to critique media and understanding the images and the TV shows and music, like the lyrics that kids repeat over and over and over again that they don't think about. Um, it is starting to have conversations about, and this is another thing where pornography and modesty culture can intersect, because if you don't have these conversations in Utah, women in bikinis then become pornography. And it can get really confusing and complex. And then there's an objectification of the body. So helping kids start to form
So wait, I just want to clarify what you're saying, because that people understand it. You're saying general media literacy, in general, talking about understanding media and actors and actresses, what's real and what's not real. That's a great context in which porn can then be overlaid. Yeah, exactly. I just want to make sure everybody who's listening understood what you were saying.
That, because that is what media literacy is. It's recognizing, I know for my kids at different stages, they learn how to navigate the internet and the difference between a .com, .org, .edu, and to understand that I don't know, for some of my children, they'll watch a show and they'll be like, is that real? No, it's not real. Let's talk about that. It can appear real because they've got actors and costumes and sets. And so when it comes to pornography, the media literacy is to also teach our kids pornography is produced and set and scripted, and there's lights, and it's adult entertainment. It is not designed for kids. It's not a healthy way to learn about sex. It's illegal to consume it underage. But again, that you don't want to like hit that scary stuff like driver's ed. It's honestly managing our own fears so that we can have conversations with our kids so that they can start to wrestle and to learn. Like my kids ask me regularly, is this pornography? Is that pornography? And we just talk about it constantly.
So, I think what's really important for people to understand is that the only way to inoculate your kids, I feel like, against whatever your fears are about pornography, is to talk about it, right? I feel like parents feel like if they can just cut it out of their lives, block the TV shows, pretend it doesn't exist. I'll be speaking to parents, they'll be like, pornography, my kid's 11. There's no way my kid sees pornography.
Really? Yeah. And I'm like, yeah. To be honest with you, the moment my kids went into public school, and I was like, well, at kindergarten, they had friends that had access to the newest iPhone with no filters on it, like just whatever access they have to. Peggy Orenstein talks about this, like navigating the digital landscape, because parents cannot control all the sources anymore at all. So the best we can do is prepare our kids, prepare them, teach them, guide them, be a safe space to talk about it with them.
Right. It feels to me like that's what parents have to get. The fact that trying to like not deal with it and thinking that porn isn't going to impact your world is just unrealistic. And so the only thing you can do is try to have open, honest conversations that spring out of other kinds of, sexual discussions with your kids.
That's right.
And I know that's really hard for parents. It's really scary. I mean, I feel like that really hits hard. You were talking before about sort of, dealing with your own fears and sort of coming to terms with your own values, issues. It's complicated for parents because they don't really want to think about their little kids seeing porn.
No, it's very complicated. And I don't think any parent wants to think about it. And so it's moving away from what we don't want and moving towards what we do want. And that's what I help parents is, if you can focus on what you do want for your children, you want them to be healthy, you want them to stay safe, you want them to have healthy experiences with their sexuality, teach that, and that will protect them from the stuff you don't want. That's what I have found to be the biggest protectors, because your kids will talk to you most of the time, or you can prepare them on who they can talk to if it's not you. That's the place that I help parents find their greatest sense of security and control, is in what they teach their children. We cannot control our children, but we sure can control the environment in which they're being raised in our home.
I love that so much. And I feel like that's a really good place for us to end, even though I wanted to talk to you about virginity because you had just did this whole thing on virginity. And I am like apoplectic about the fact that we're still using this freaking word virginity in our world. Right. So, all right, we'll do another one on virginity sometime. Kristin, I just want to send you my love and say thank you so much for coming on. The world is lucky to have you. I just want you to know that.
And I love that we have Orthodox, am I saying this correct? Orthodox Judaism and Mormonism spanning the country right now.
Yes, exactly. And when I will just tell you, when all of this is over, like when COVID is done and over, I'm either coming out to Utah or you could come to New York and come to a Shabbat Friday night dinner, our Sabbath dinner. Love to have you.
I would just love that.
All right. Take good care. Have a good night.
Hey.
Bye.
Bye.